All right, I think we got it. Thanks for bearing with me. And hey, y'all, it's the 5th of August, 2024. This is Cardano Go Live Coding with Gimbalabs, Blink Labs, and friends. And we're building a course together. So the last few sessions, we've zoomed in on one particular project around using Adder, going from the starter kit to handling events and to finally achieving some end use case. And now that we've had that experience, as we start to look ahead towards delivering this course, it's really cool at each module level to start with the end in mind. So in this case, we have a module here. It's titled for now, Reacting to Chain Events. There's some learning targets that we're going to flesh out around using Adder, configuring it, applying filters, and achieving something. But at the end of this, I like that we wrote, I don't know where that came from. Throw you for a loop. We're going to throw you for a loop at the end. But really, what we want to do at the end of these modules is give people a project. Hey, we just showed you some essential stuff that you need to know. Now go do a thing. And this model should be applied to each one of these modules. So if we show people how to set up wallets and build transactions, what's a project we could do here, right? We have a placeholder that says some transaction assignment. We have some initial ideas here of what we might do. And when we're planning a course, this can be a really helpful way to already know the project we're going to give people so that as we're writing these lessons, we've already got that in mind and we're dropping little breadcrumbs that are going to help people once they get to here. So I think that's the position we're in. And what I was hoping we could do first today is just use like an indexer project of some kind as a case study. And then if we have time, then we can apply what we learned from that case study to thinking about what the assignments can be in these other modules. How much sense is that all making?
Plenty. You should go take a look at the Adder starter kit as of like this morning.
Ooh,
Alice
has it been updated?
Alice added filter by event type, filter transactions by address, and
Awesome.
filter by pool ID. I didn't see an example for by policy ID, so we can add that one.
Yeah.
But if you go under a command now, CMD, yeah, so we have the original publisher that publishes everything that I did, and then you can see we have an event address filter and a pool
Hot
ID.
off the presses.
Hot off the presses, yeah. So we've got this one being an example of it filters to transactions. So this is the event type, right? It
Perfect.
filters. Yeah. So if you scroll down, you'll see where we
Yeah.
get the filters here. Yeah. So we filter event filter, right? We define an address for a chain sync filter. Oh, we do filter by specific asset. So this is only JED on that address,
Mhm.
right? And then we
That's
add the
nice. Yeah.
filters.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we just add the filter and start the pipeline. So, and then the other command.
We just while we're here. So this one can drop directly into filtering. I mean, certainly filtering. Well, it's already filtering by address as well. All right.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea is, like we can start here and just show them the event filter, and they're already going to see the rest of it, right? So then we can just go through the same, you know, code, obviously, for the differences, right? And then, like basically just point out those specific things and, have them change the things, right?
Exactly.
Filter with your own address. Do, right? Like any of that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
Right.
Cool. And so then the next one was
Cool.
Pool ID filter. Very nice.
Yep. Oh, here we go. And then you'll see here. So, we define which pool ID to filter on. And it's got two of them just as an example. And you can see, how easy it is. That's it. As you just
Right.
list them and
Right.
it's so
Nice. So these are ready to go.
yep.
Beautiful. And we don't have one yet for pool ID, but we can add that. Oh, we do have that. Yes, we do. Nice. All right, so you go through this process, and we've already got example code, which is the hardest part, right? Once we have this, it's really just a matter of giving people a little guided tour of it. So
Right.
thanks.
Right. Yep.
Thanks to Alice as well.
So that's why we've been just like going through them and making sure that we've got the things right. So
Exactly, exactly. And that's the
policy.
flow.
Oh wait, no,
That's
we already had policy ID, didn't we? So yeah, we got them all. Okay.
so right, like all of this stuff is checked off. This whole module can basically be written.
Yep.
Got everything we need. Okay, so we're going to flesh that out, and it's even easier. One prerequisite towards writing a lesson is having the examples. Check.
Right.
And the other one is to think about the assignment. So I was just playing with this yesterday while I was thinking about, okay, what is the guided process we want to go to? And in particular, we've talked about this in previous weeks. We really want this to be applied knowledge. So I was thinking like, okay, right, like what we really want to call this lesson is like planning and implementing an indexer, or
Mhm.
and we can refine these words, but really playing with this idea like what's the use case, right? Don't just run the indexer. What
Right.
endpoints do you need? Does this feel like an okay question to ask right away? Or does it kind of conceal some of the other use cases for adder?
Yeah. I guess it could be. It really depends on what you want to target. Right. Right.
Right? So like that's really it's more of like a decision tree. So use case, do you need an API for your app? Okay. What endpoints do you need? But what would be another question like at this level? Some archiving, like
Yeah. Yeah. So realizing that we're not just using adder, we're using it as a library, which gives us, a lot more flexibility and power. Right.
mm, right,
Uh, yeah.
right,
So, essentially, do you want to, well, that's the thing is during the handle event loop, it's just an event loop, right? So you can do
right,
anything with it.
right.
So do you want to integrate adder into, yeah, sure, into a Go application? Like either one is basically the same thing. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
either way, it goes into a Go app. But
Right. Right.
let's see. What I'm trying to think of how to explain it. So, like you've kind of got a lot of this also in the next question, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you trying to put it into a database? Like, are you trying to, do it via webhooks? Are you trying to integrate with, a mobile app? Right. We actually kind of have examples for all of that using our with our built-in outputs. Right. But they're very unopinionated. They only allow, they send whole events and that sort of stuff, right? Which isn't necessarily what you're going to want in your application, which is the reason for embedding it in the first place. Yeah, I think this seems better. Yeah. There we go. Right. Yep.
Right. And then you were saying you have examples for like the webhooks and for the mobile app. Where are those?
So they're actually the built into adder. So
Oh,
adder
right.
has
Okay.
multiple outputs, right? And so we're using it, and so you can use those outputs as an example of what you might want, right?
So the output type
Because when you're
for,
using it as a library, you're always using the embedded output type.
yes.
So you can always emulate what any of the other output types do in your own with your own business logic. Because once again, that handle event is it's just an event loop, right? It's just
Right.
on event do
When you
thing,
see this event happen on the chain, start anything.
anything, right? Exactly, anything.
Right.
So
And
um,
what we've been doing so far, just for the first example, is we've been saying, okay, well, if there's a transaction, add this this specifically parsed data to a database.
right, right,
Okay. But it could, right. And then we go the extra step of saying, okay, well, given that database, we can query it, fine. But if we didn't want to do it that way, there are other approaches. So like and I played with the webhooks the first time I played with Adder, and I just can't remember. So what will be different here?
from the from the webhook output.
Yeah. So we say, okay, I want somebody to be able to
So I mean, here
watch
essentially,
an endpoint instead.
no. So it's not watching an endpoint; it's connecting to a remote endpoint, right? So it's posting data to a remote. That's generally what a webhook is doing. So in other words, it becomes an HTTP client to send
Right.
all or some part of the payload, to a remote, or maybe completely reshaping the payload. So if you even look at our webhooks example, and I say example, but it's actually the output. If you go look at Adder itself,
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's see.
and go to output, right, webhook,
Mhm.
and look at webhook, and you'll see that like I built specific support for Discord in here. So there's the ability to tell it. So like you see where we have format, so that you can actually specify a Discord format. And if you scroll down, you can see where I take care of this Discord format. If you just keep going, you can. So there's format webhook, right? And if you keep going, there's like do it in Discord format. Yeah, Discord message embedded. You see like all of this. So I build a what looks like a Discord payload because that's what Discord needs, right? To be able to send this notification. And so like my point though is I don't know what your web app looks like. I don't know what your posting endpoint looks like or what data you might want or something like that. So you can build it yourself. In this case, we're using actually a Discord library that has a way to send a message with an embedded file, which is how we
Yeah.
send our payload. Right. So, this is an example of formatting a webhook specifically for, writing to Discord. And there's also like the generic, our default, which if you scroll down and look at the default, we literally just JSON marshal it. No, it's
Mhm.
no, it's tiny. Go back up, go back up. It's 4 lines at the end of this thing. Yeah, stop. Default, just send them the the JSON. All right.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So no formatting or anything. It's just, we take the event, we convert the event to JSON, we send it.
Right.
So that's the default, so you'll see case Discord, all of that special code is just in Discord, right? And then the default is just sending JSON load.
Right.
So, I added, this is essentially Discord business logic, right? To
That's a
it.
great example, though. So wait, so do people need to like if this was going to be an illustrative project, do people need to own a server in order to then use this, or how would you then use this?
You would push it to somewhere. And so, like in the case of Discord, we push it to a Discord webhook URL.
Uh,
A webhook generally is going to be where you're sending to some other service, right? And you're trying to communicate something to that service. So, an example of something that could be done here is a pager alarm or something like that, right? So you could have, if an event happens that transfers more than, 1,000 ADA out of this wallet, send a webhook to PagerDuty that is shaped like the PagerDuty API, right? I mean, like that's the thing is you have all the flexibility. We didn't build infinite flexibility into our webhook output. But if you are building your own webhook output using the embedded data and
right.
handling each event, right, then you can make it do anything. You can shape it for any
And
remote API.
this is a great example of a thing you
Correct.
could do with this. Right?
Yes.
Like, so here's an
Yes.
example. Now go do anything else. Um,
Yeah. So I mean, like this is like I said, this is very explicitly an example of creating a Discord webhook event. I mean, like that's what it is we're pushing a webhook to Discord. And
right,
so we needed to change the format to match what Discord needs, not what Adder produces.
right,
And so, we did that using actually Discord has their own Go library, right? So we just used their Go library.
right,
So
right,
that's the point that we get to here though is these webhooks can be anything to any remote service to any right. So when we think about integrating services between each other, API services and things like that, a lot of times what happens is they integrate via webhooks, webhooks and callback addresses, right? So you send data to them with a webhook, and maybe on their side you've configured a callback address that it can send data back to you from. And now you have two-way communication between some kind of remote like Discord or
right,
Telegram or right, so building bots, building anything like that.
right.
So anyway, like
That's that's
here's
a that's a thrilling project, and no, and it gets my initial questions here. A lot of it comes from just my inexperience seeing some of those patterns going all the way,
right.
and this, but I also know that both an expressed need, Chrissy and I have talked about this, is for DevOps folks. And this is the kind of project that nudges people in that direction and gives, like, there's a few insights that people could pick up along the way.
Right.
Um, that's exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, and when we say webhook, essentially what that just, really means is any payload that you're sending to somewhere else as an API call, right? So, your webhook could be make a trade on Coinbase,
Right.
right?
Right.
I mean, it could be in any number of things. In
Right.
fact, just giving you like a an idea of something that we had talked about building is essentially a system to automatically trade out catalyst payments.
Mhm.
So
The moment they come in.
as soon as the catalyst
Yeah.
payment comes in,
When
send
funds
it to,
hit this address, do this.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and when funds hit this address, do this, take that and send it, say, directly to your centralized exchange. Watch your centralized exchange address also when the funds hit there, right? Do the thing.
Right.
If it happens to be Coinbase, like they use enterprise addresses and they take your funds out of the enterprise address and put it into like a shared place, but that's how you're able to track when they add it to your account, because
Right.
when they add it to your account is when they take it out of the enterprise address, which is after like so many confirmations or something. So the point is
Right.
you can still use on-chain data to know what they've done in their database. And then you can always use the API call to, like make the trade. You can use API calls to read, in that handle event loop, right?
That's
So
really fun. Okay, so now the challenge is what subset of that goes into the course?
absolutely great. So here for the webhook, I would definitely show this Discord example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Discord might be a good example to show off. There's
It's a very satisfying one to show people, right? To do a full lap and to see the result of your work in an automated Discord message. That's pretty empowering. Um,
so I also have just a second here. Where is it at? I also have the Adder webhook starter kit, which we have not
oh
talked
yeah, thought I saw that.
about. Yeah, so the Adder webhook starter kit is currently ridiculously stupid and easy in what it does, because it does nothing but print the raw bytes as string. So if you send it a JSON payload, it will print a JSON payload. So this is good enough, right? Running as a server. You see it just accepts, it posts at slash, right? If you look at the router at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And for every single webhook that comes in, it runs handle webhook.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, we just read the raw bytes out of the payload and then we just print the
Right,
raw
right, right,
bytes. So
right.
this is as easy as possible for a example of the other side,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So this could be your application that you're posting to, and that's good enough for showing off as an example. My point is someone doesn't need a service like a Discord or anything that to post to. We could use this, and in fact this is what I actually use for troubleshooting Adder as I work on the payloads and stuff
Nice.
like that. I will spin this up, and you'll even see in the README it says how to like how to launch Adder to communicate with it, because this is super simple. Like I don't even have configuration for gen or anything like that, so it'll
Yeah.
always launch on 8080. You know what I mean? If you run this, and it has no dependencies or anything like that. I mean, like no external service dependencies. It just runs itself. It runs a web server on 8080, and all it does is print whatever the heck you send to it. So super simple.
Okay. So a lot of people, as they're learning Cardano development, are also evolving their understanding of UTXOs.
Right.
Um, and I just did this. So like to quickly mint all of the digitalis domains we needed, I just pre-split my UTXOs. So I had, 60 indexes with the same transaction hash. And then I
Right.
just fed those to Mix's endpoint, right?
Yeah.
Um, but without taking, and that's a fine preliminary step to build a lot of efficiency, and maybe people build an application that does that, right? But as
Right.
people are moving towards understanding that that's an option, a common roadblock that people might run into is we say, all right, you're minting an NFT series, and there's a admin wallet that needs to sign off on the multi-sig minting transaction, but oh no, that admin wallet, well, this would be if, yeah, we'd have to make like a contrived Plutus minter that involved like some token. But just thinking of some case where a wallet with only one UTXO has to spend that UTXO, even if it's just for fees in a transaction or something,
Right.
then basically we can contrive this scenario where you want to mint a series or run a series of transactions from this same wallet, and we're not going to run the next one until the previous one is confirmed.
Right.
um, and we can do that, right? We can just say, hey, now let's build kind of a trivial app that
Mhm.
watches your address, and when it sees this transaction, it just fires the next one.
Yeah. And
And that
that's
would give people a
almost,
way of seeing. That's like the integrated example.
yeah, I mean, that's almost what the Builder Fest example would be, right? Because we were watching a wallet,
Right? It's almost
creating a
there.
transaction, yeah, and creating a transaction and sending it, so yeah, it's all under internal.
This was.
So the indexer, yeah, so the indexer just does the actual indexing. You can see we've got all of our filtering, but you see we're watching more than one wallet.
Mhm.
Right. So we're watching our own filter addresses and then the reward wallet that we're sending to, because we care about our own address and then also the address that we're sending things to, because we're checking confirmation. Like we are checking to see the confirmation. So we have this handle event. Handle event runs TX Builder, so it'll all be in TX Builder's handle event.
Right. Okay. This one already is that. This is exactly that. Right.
Yes, we generate a transaction when we have an event, or well, sorry, all of that logic is in the TX Builder side. But so every event we say we send it to TX Builder, and then we say, okay, TX Builder, you have an event. It's now up to you to figure out what to do with it, right? And so you'll see, yeah, on the handle event, if it's this, do that. If it's this, right? So you can see that we process it a bit,
Mhm.
right? If it's the address, skip further processing. See, skipping further processing, someone didn't do it or it didn't match.
And
So like,
does this run? When does this stop running then?
well, it runs once every event. This
Right,
task is
right, right. This is
single.
the example of when one transaction hits my address, then I do something else.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, like that's that goes back to the catalyst
Right, right, right. Like an idea like that.
handling. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean in
So,
here, like we only build the transaction in certain cases, right? So I mean, like you see where we have all these warns, they're not failures at all. We
mhm,
just exit then, because those are the cases where we didn't match what we want to do.
mhm,
So we exit early, right?
mhm.
So we check everything and then we look and see, like, hey, is there any reason why we want to skip this transaction and do nothing? And we just log in that case. And then if you get past all of the skip, that's when we get into where we actually build the transaction and then submit the transaction. And then the last thing that I want to show off is we do have in Adder another output plugin. Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, the idea that we kind of showed off here in this one is, like a royalty or something like that, right? Like, oh, every
Yes,
we get a
right.
payment, send 5 ADA. It's something like every time there's a payment, send 5 ADA to somebody else, right? So it splits it. That's exactly what it does. It takes a little bit and gives it to the other person every time it comes in. So it's exactly like you said. Um, right, right.
Okay. That's a neat project. Right. Okay. And that's testable by the person implementing it.
Yes,
Like they can then see it working. The Discord one pulls in stuff that we have to decide if we want it to be in the scope of the course, or do we want to be teaching people the Discord part?
no, but the point there was showing more how you can create a webhook that's more specific to a
Right.
specific use
Right.
case.
And we can have a demo of this set up. Like this can be something that we show people in a lesson, and we can say, hey, go over to the Blink Labs Discord server and see this thing working
Sure.
or something. But then, right. But then we can say all of the details of this, they're a little beyond scope. If you have questions about it, drop by live coding. Great. But this, yeah, like some kind of royalty payment or team split, this is
Right,
something
right.
that somebody can implement it, see it working, and feel
Yep.
confidence about that.
And then the last one for the up in use case specific types. If you go back to Adder itself, we have another output, which it gets a little confusing because it's mixed up in some things. But so we've got push, and the push output uses the cloud messaging from Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this creates a push object, and you actually see at the top level, we actually have a FCM directory that does a bunch of specific stuff for FCM. So you'll see, yeah. So we have that for some of this. So wherever you see anything that's like FCM dot, that's going to be that top level stuff, and you can always go look at it. But again, that's very specific to the implementation. But you can see that what we're doing is we're generating a payload, and when we send a push notification payload, so like above you can see that we're creating this payload, and what we have is what we're sending. So sorry, in start,
Yeah.
yeah, keep keep going down.
Sorry.
Yeah. So right here for each event type, right? So if it's a block,
Right.
then we create a payload that looks like this. It says new block, right? Block number, slot number, hash. That's what we're going to push, right? We're going to push, the notification message is the title and body. So we're going to create a title and body, and then we're going to push that. So, again, it's new block. So you get a notification literally that shows up, says like new block. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we have Adder Mobile, which is the app that receives these. So you can actually take Adder Mobile, you compile it with, like you go and create a cloud messaging project in Google, and like
Mm-hmm.
get the credentials for it. You compile the mobile side with the credentials, and this side you run with the server side credentials, and it does push notifications. So the point being is it can be done extremely specific for use cases, but like if you wanted push notifications for some reason in an application, like we basically have what that looks like, right? Like, yeah, this here is the FCM specific part of it, right? So we just take the message that we've already generated, and we're pushing it to Google Cloud Messages.
And then if I've never played with this before, but once this is set up, then it's through your Google dashboard that you have like the push URL to watch.
Yeah, so it's always I mean, it's always the same. It's always this Google API and then projects. So you create a Google project, and
So
you
this
configure
this
that
is what I'm watching. Or
no.
No.
No. So you're watching the chain. This is what you're pushing to. This is what you're
R-
send to. See, right?
Right, but how is then
the mobile app.
how is the mobile app consuming this?
The mobile app also reads and subscribes to the cloud messaging, and so it is a bit more complicated than this because if you go through and you look at this, we actually have more than just the message. So this is just the message. There's actually an API that runs in Adder, and so give me just a second. I'll show you this here real quick. Let me. What is it? V1 API? I can't remember what it's called. All right. Anyway, I don't remember the address. I have to go look it up. But we have the point is it creates a QR code that sits at an API address. And so you can, with the mobile app, which you can actually download and run, we need to reconfigure it after the name change of Adder. But we have a mobile app that you can connect up and you can get all of the notifications that you configure with Adder. And so we have a running instance of Adder, and you go to an endpoint and it shows you a QR code, and you scan the QR code with the mobile app, and that creates a credential on the device that is now credentialed to Google to watch that endpoint. Right. And so the server Adder itself becomes the server, that is serving that QR code that helps establish that credential that ties it to this FCM endpoint project ID messages. Right. So we have a specific Google project for our specific Adder,
Right.
but someone,
Exactly.
you would do the same thing for your mobile app.
Well, and so this, like the Discord example, could this be something that learners see the end result of by downloading the app and seeing that it works?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And then
we need
we
to fix
basically
it on our side, but yes, we've
can
not put
we, I
much into
mean,
it, but
right, and that's the thing, right? Can we have people like post a message as metadata and then see the push notification in the app? Would that be something that would be quick and easy enough to deploy?
no,
No.
because
Okay.
you'd have to change. Yeah, because again, setting up the Google account, setting up all that's not quick and easy
Not
to do,
worth it.
right? Like
Right. Good.
it's a project of its own.
Exactly.
It's
Okay.
it's a distraction. My point here is that we have the examples of all the things. So if someone is
Right.
looking to build a mobile app, we give them, this is how the mobile app side of it works, essentially, right? Is there you can point them at the output, for FCM. This is sorry, I'm number two, item four or whatever. Are you building a
Yeah,
mobile
yeah,
app?
yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So then we can just point them at that code if they're looking at how to build a mobile app, right?
That's very good. Well, and then these could become like challenges, right? Like we could put out like a project reward for somebody who builds a demo like
That's
this and does
sorry,
that.
wait,
Like
that's the wrong link entirely.
for
Yeah,
oh, this link right here.
yeah, that's the
Oh
wrong
yeah,
link.
no, that I put that there as a reference for myself. I just want to start there to reread this and then I'll back. I remember where this is pulled in. Yeah.
Right, but go back to the actual output. That's the important part because that's the code that they would
Right.
actually.
Okay.
So, right, like this FCM part. My point is no one should ever need to look at that FCM part. That FCM part is FCM. Like you
Right.
don't
Right.
change that. It's just take a payload and send it.
Right.
Yeah, the push is the actual, like code for how we're doing it.
Right.
My point is you can just import Adder's FCM module. You don't have to rewrite that. It's generic. That's why we put it at the top
Right.
level. It's not part of internal, is so that
Right.
anyone can consume it as part of a library externally. which is what we do in our push output is we consume it from Adder as a library part. It's not part of the internal output of the module, right? Um, right. Yeah. So, that's done on purpose so that the FCM part, the completely reusable part, is separate from the actual like implementation of the push output. So we could have someone and say, okay, we want you to push an FCM message or something like that, right? And
Right.
FCM does not have to be a mobile app. It's
Right.
just push messages.
Right.
Push messages can be anything. You can subscribe to FCM from a TypeScript front end.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, like if you've ever been on an app, and I mean, like these guys don't do this, but I'm just saying, like, like LinkedIn or whatever, and all of a sudden you get a notification and it pops up, and Facebook, any of those things, right? Like that kind of a feedback could be done via an app and FCM. Just like push notifications, you get a notification from Google because your calendar invite, right? Like all of that stuff that actually uses cloud messaging. Yeah. So it looks like we
This is
finished.
great. I know. Yeah, we're at time. Look at full scope of what Adder provides. Excellent. Well, that expanded my scope of understanding these things because I've seen those folders there, but really haven't integrated that knowledge. This is awesome. So yeah, this is the kind of treatment, and we're practicing right now, like the treatment that we can give to a broader topic at the end of a module. So thanks for the deep dive into this one. I think I think starting in the middle and establishing these patterns, I'm going to be looking closely at this module for the next couple of weeks, because then once we have that, then we can apply those patterns to these other ones. It's the 5th of August. We do this most Mondays. Next week is a travel week for some of us. I know that Chris and I are going out to Rare Evo. Really pumped to see you there, Chris, and to set up a novel network. But we're gonna take a week off from these Go sessions just because there's so much going on next week. So let's pick it up in 2 weeks on the 19th. Or if you're jet lagged, a week later. But yeah, I think this is a good chance to kind of slow down and take stock of what's here. So if we pick it up in a couple weeks, I think we're okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks for the deep dive today. Daniel, Adrian, Mix, thanks for hanging, and see everybody soon. Bye, guys.